Hello, welcome to Group 1 presentation for Business Law course. Now we are going to talk about Introduction to Indonesian Law and Legal System. This is a member of our group. I am Dafar Kandirija.
Hello, I'm Devina.
Hello, I'm Carissa Dina Aurelia.
Hello, I'm Zhu Ziye. Does any of you know what law means? Here are the many of links by professions. According to practice, one can long set of reinforcing what cares you and protect people in test in search. Acting to professions suffocating and law is understanding that contains many parts of will and covers wide range of will, so that no thing some difficult things can reveal compete and reflect. According to Hugo graphics, law is more real acting to that right things and acting to health cursing. Long is career imperative or home behavior. Long is the primary norm on establishing sections.
Now, how does Indonesian law structure look like? Most Indonesian law begin with the title of head of the executive of the level of government primarily responsible for the law. This is how is it structured. The President of the Republic of Indonesia, considering retinals of the law, remembering other relevant law, with the joint agreement of the DPR or the President. For how the law is written, it follows a common form and shares the following feature, referred by their number a year. For example, Law 12 of 2011 on lawmaking is the formal reference for the 2011 lawmaking law.
Is anyone curious on how is the history of Indonesia's government system? It all started in Dutch era. It's called Dutch era because in that period of time, Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch for a very long time, and that long colonization made Indonesians nationalists got inspired by the Dutch government system, which during 1945 until 1949, the government system is presidential with UUD RIS 1945 as its constitution. Then continued to Japanese era, same as the Dutch era, it's called Japanese era because Indonesia was colonized too by the Japanese, in which from 1950 until 1959, the government system was liberal democracy or also called parliamentary democracy. Constitutionally, UUDS 1950 is used. And then in independence era, there were two generations of order. They are old order and new order. Old order started in 1960 and ended in 1966. The government system was guided democracy, constitutional, using the 1945 constitution. New order started in 1967 until 1998 with presidential government system led by Suharto or Paharto for 32 years using UUD 1945 as the constitution. Last but not least, since no one knows the future from 1988 until now is called the reform era, where we use presidential government system but is led with democracy where people of the country have most of the voices or right of what will happen in Indonesia, and is using UUD 1945 as our constitution.
Doesn't question and that instinct history said with UUD 1965 as it is the result of operations. Japanese force gave Indonesian nationalities license to play independence. The it changed into the 1949 and interim 1953 constituting the most important, making it interesting short-lived. Causing the circular despite the constituted and returned to the 1945 constitutions by Israel on 5 July 1959, which was the rest on until now using UUD 1949 as over positive.
The Four Amendments. The First Amendment was passed on 19 October 1999 and was primarily directed at reducing the power of the presidency that Suharto has abused for over 30 years. The second, on 18 August 2000, this adopted an array of internationally recognized human rights from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or you can say UDHR, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, ICESCR. Passed in 2001 and 2002, respectively, were reducing the MPR's power and establishing important new institutions, including the Constitutional Court, a Judicial Commission, and the Regional Representative Council, Dewan Perwakilan Daerah, or DPD.
Not to forget the hierarchy of law and regulation in Indonesia, as you can see in the process. The question is at the top. This means the one who has the most action in the question. The following is people just like what our slides before. We use chemicals as is law. The third person in line of what is content by the government regarding present death, says misent, and less in line is local government regarding.
Now is about the judicial system. Indonesia is former Dutch colony. Upon declaring independence in 1945, the new republic inherited the Dutch legal system, including Dutch colonial law as it stood. Most Dutch laws have since been replaced, but some Dutch colonial statutes have survived. Perhaps from the Dutch Indonesian also inherited the civil law or continental law legal tradition found in European countries such as France and Germany and much of Asia and South America.
We move on to Indonesia's legal system. Indonesia's legal system is a combination of these three laws: Adat law, Islamic law, and civil law. Adat law is customs or habits of the community and have the purpose to regulate behavior in social life. And Islamic law is a religious law that is based on the sacred scripture of Islam, which are Al-Quran and Hadith. If you're asking why Indonesia's legal system also uses this law, it is because the majority of Indonesians are Muslims. Last is civil law. It is inquisitorial in nature, or judges have a major role in directing and deciding a case. Indonesia got inspired by civil law, which is because of the history by colonization by the Dutch that cannot be erased fully. As what we just explained on the slides before, Adat law is custom or habits that each ethnic is believing and following. Primarily, adult law applies to land, family law issues, contracts, and criminal offenses. This law focuses on community equilibrium harmony. It manifests itself in preference for informal mediation through deliberation and consensus, or we can say musyawarah and mufakat. This emphasis on community members assisting one another are required. According to Bowen, one of the professionals in law, adat refer to the rules or practices of social life, to feelings and sense of propriety. According to Supomo, adat law is a living law. It reflects the real feelings of society. Adat is continually in state of growth. The example of adat law is inheritance law. Each places or ethnics in Indonesia have different perspective on how inheritance should be done. Minangkabau ethnic believe in matrilineal inheritance, where land property pass from mother to daughter, while Bali ethnic believe in patrilineal inheritance, where male generally inherit the family's asset. Nevertheless, of these two ethnics, Jawa ethnics believe in bilateral kinship. Both male and female children have inheritance right.
Here are some key streams or branches within civil law. Contract law. Contract law governs agreements and contracts made between individuals or entities. It includes the information, interpretation, enforceability and performance of contracts, as well as remedies for breaches of contracts. Tort law. Tort law addresses civil wrongs or injuries caused to a person or their property by the action or omission of another party. This includes negligence, international torts, and state liability. Property law. Property law deals with the right and interest in real and personal property, including ownership, acquisition, transfer, use, and disposal of property. It encompasses law related to land, real estate, intellectual property, and more. Family law. Family law covers legal matters related to family and domestic relationships such as marriage, divorce, child custody, adoption, spousal support, and paternity matters. Inheritance and succession law. Inheritance law governs and transfer of property and assets upon a person's death. It includes regulation on wills, trust, intestate succession, and estate planning. Civil procedure. Civil procedure outlines the rules and processes that govern civil litigation. It includes rules for initiating lawsuits, presenting evidence, conducting trial, and appealing court decisions. Consumer law. Consumer law focuses on protecting customers' rights and interest in transaction and interaction with business. It addresses issues such as property liability, customer contract, unfair trade practices, and customer right. Labor and employment law. Labor and employee law cover the legal relationship between employer and employees, including employment contract, wage, working condition, termination, and working right. Intellectual property law. Intellectual property law pertain to the protection of intellectual creation such as patent, trademark, copyright, and trade secret. It involves regulation that grant exclusive right to creator, and investor.
Definition of Islamic law. Islamic law, known as Sharia or Islamic jurisprudence, refers to the legal framework and principle of the Quran, or Islam's holy book, and Hadith, or the saying and action of the Prophet Muhammad. It regulates various aspects of life, including religious, social, economic, and moral issues, providing guidelines by which Muslims should live and interact. Several examples of Islamic law integrated into the Indonesian legal system. First, marriage and divorce. Indonesian law recognizes Islamic marriages in Indonesia. Islamic law regulates matters relating to marriage. Article 1 of the Indonesian marriage law recognizes the role of Islamic law in marriage matters. Second, inheritance. Islamic law upholds inheritance rights, especially for Muslims. The Indonesian inheritance law allows Muslims to apply Islamic principles in matters of inheritance, stating that for Muslims, inheritance is regulated by Islamic law.